Good morning. It's a great pleasure and honor for me to be with good friends again. Before I came, like usual, attending conference, we prepare speech. My young members of cabinet prepare speech, but I think finally I have decided to tell you a story of digital transformation and sustainability. I think that. So first, the title of your conference, digital transformation, is one word, and sustainability is another word. And the first one contains hope and fear, and particularly the risk of digital technology and AI, but certainly digital technology and AI will enable economic growth through new type of industry and use of intelligent robots. So these two words actually make me think of the existential and tangible threats to humankind. If you look at the sustainability perspective, never ever in the human history has become to such a precipice in our future. The historian of the earth has mentioned that human has impact on the nature of the earth sometime when we start farming some 15 years ago. But historian of technology thought that the real impact, negative impact on the earth and environment that carry high risk of sustainability started at the 18th century during the industrial revolution in Europe. They started there. So with this existential and tangible threat to humanity, humankind, what should we do with that? And all of us will go through this technology that is here to stay. You cannot escape. Every morning you wake up, the first thing you do is not to embrace your loved one or your partner, but to reach out to your smartphone. And the last thing you do before you go to sleep is the same thing. So this digital technology has deeply transformed our relationship with that tool, and we have to look at the philosophy of human-machine interactions, and we are one already. So I'd like to share with you my personal journey through this digital transformation, to say, simply because of what I have chosen as a specialty. I'm a medical doctor, and when I finished my medicine, I decided to take medical imaging, radiology in the 80 golden years, simply because there are a lot of mathematics and physics. I was more comfortable with numbers than with people at that time. I have improved my skill in interacting with people by now. So when I finished my training in radiology in France, in Paris, I decided to take a course, a postgraduate course in bioinformatics and what the French call informatics mean computer science. My mentor, my peers laughed at me. Why do you need to study that? And actually it served me well. And later on, when I moved to Canada and taught at McGill University, we start our first project of digital transformation, distance reading of films. Canada is a very large country, and I used to joke that my department, radiology, was the largest in the world, mean that we see a patient 4,000 kilometers away, but the film had been transmitted to our department in Montreal. So that's the beginning of digital radiography, 1980, so almost a half a century already. And its progress evolved slowly. And if you look at the history of AI, artificial intelligence, in the late 80s or 80s, we called that AI winter. But at that time, still, there was some tool available, and I was drawn in an experimentation. My colleague at the University of Ottawa, engineers were building an expert system. It's an early artificial intelligence expert system, means you build an algorithm, a program for the computer, and you use the expertise of an expert. Therefore, they call expert system. And that tool was to identify with the highest accuracy possible the type of cancer of the bones among 120 something. And they used me as an expert to test. And not surprisingly, I beat the computer all the time. Not because I'm very smart, I was, but because the algorithm to design that system was very basic, very simple, and the database for images was very small, and therefore that system lacked the plasticity of a human brain. So it was very easy for me to beat that computer. But now, 40 years later, the game is different. You know that 5-6 years ago, a AI system in China has been able to pass successfully the selection into a top medical school in Beijing there. And in Japan, the same artificial intelligence system playing a role as a student was able to sit and pass the very selective process of admission to top university, the University of Tokyo. So the time has changed, the database is bigger, and algorithm is more complex. And then I moved to Singapore in the late 90s. We were experimenting voice recognition. I think there's a company, I forgot the name, they invite us to test how to report, because it's so long for the typist to do, using a machine to recognize our voice. But again, the system was not technologically sophisticated enough that the accuracy of the transcription was only 60%. So we dropped it. But recently, I think the last 5 years, there's a company in Montreal called Lyrebird, and disclaimer here, I have no shares there, but they were able to, if that machine capture your voice, they will be able to reproduce your voice artificially and make a speech on any, whatever you want that machine to do. So can you imagine that if you were to, you used to give instruction to your account manager at the bank, transfer this and this to this and this, the voice will be the same tone, same accent. So all this with the good bring also the bad. And at the same time also digital transformation at the hospital, there's a hospital system, and certainly radiology, we are the most prone and most advanced specialty because we use digital imaging, and transmitting image is part of our daily life. So all of this of my journey, it shows you that now digital technology has become combined. In the past, our database is about 2 buildings, but now it's smaller and smaller. And if you look at the evolution of technology, everything can, a huge building can just put in one smartphone here. And it's changed the way we approach work, business, even our private life. So all this to tell you how change has evolved and so fast. And I think of an American sociologist, Ray Kurzweil. I think he's a science fiction and a writer. He wrote in the mid-80s that by 2030 or 2040, the intelligence of machine will surpass the intelligence of human. And he called that technology singularity. That's the science fiction, people would argue. But it seems that if you look at the trend of intelligence of machine and human intelligence has reached a level like a plateau according to our human evolution, biological evolution, but the machine is going, may cross that plateau one day. And then came generative AI, ChatGPT in October or November 2022. That changed everything. It's here to stay. Some country become, overreactive. Italy banned ChatGPT immediately, but after 1 month, the government reversed the decision. Many universities in Europe, North America, and Asia has banned the use of ChatGPT at the university on the motive that this will promote, enable cheating. But in the business world, in our life, everyone is using that. If you don't use all these new tools that come on the market, you're going to be left behind. And I can tell you that for the last 2 years, I spent almost 1,000 hours already testing ChatGPT, and I cannot function effectively anymore without the use of this tool. But yet, a warning here, ChatGPT, whatever the other tool, Bing, etc., generate text digitally. They generate text and without context. So text without context is not knowledge. So it's going to be very difficult for the future. The university has to change their curriculum. Professor has to change their mindset because the students, they are using that. You're pushed by the new generation. And you look at my country in Cambodia, 60% population are millennials. So definitely in the government, we're pushing hard also. So all this come to the point that generative AI is here to stay. And a little bit, I'm not engineering, but through my reading, through my discussion with engineers, is that you train this large language model, data set for training, it through the compute consume a lot of energy. So then, the advancement of AI and the overconsumption of energy, where we reach a level of consumption of fossil fuels, all they put together is a threat to sustainability in the future. So I like to congratulate you to put this together. Digital transformation and sustainability has to be implemented in the country through policy, in the business, whatever sector, with high human responsibility for the future. So how to deal with that? Because this new technology permeates all aspects of our life, private and professional life, is to consider this technology as a dual technology, mean used for good and the used for bad. Myself, having worked 6 years at the International Atomic Energy Agency, when I look back, it was relatively easy to try to govern the proliferation of nuclear weapons because the weaponization of nuclear technology is done by a state, by a government. So because government as a member state gathered at the International Atomic Energy Agency in Vienna, they can win the difference through proper and effective diplomatic negotiations. But when you consider digital technology and AI, not only member states are involved, but many non-state actors, particularly multinational corporate, very powerful, Google, Alphabet, and now in China, Huawei. Explain why geopolitically there's such a clash between different countries' power with different views and ideology of the use of internet. The so-called free world is just a narrative, free world. They talk about internet freedom, and the non-free world is a Western narrative, dominant narrative they call China and Russia, that they have an ideology of internet sovereignty. So how can we deal with that? How can we deal with the governance? And then I think that from this point of view, the governance of digital technology, putting in a context of sustainability, guided by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals have to be done beyond a particular country. ASEAN is one. When in 2022, Cambodia was the chair of ASEAN, our former Prime Minister Hun Sen has launched the ASEAN Green Deal. But this is a necessity, but not sufficient. We need to work with mini Green Deal programs across the globe. So with all this together, what you do here is very timely because this year is the next year 75th anniversary of the foundation of the United Nations. It works as it works. Its primary goal was to prevent peace. It doesn't seem to work very well when you look at the disaster of global security and war everywhere now, particularly in Middle East and in Europe. So in order to, not to celebrate, but to mark the point that at 75 years old, the UN has to look at the next 75 years until 2100, year 2100. As such, the UN will organize a summit of the future that will be held in New York, I forgot, before and after the General Assembly in September. And with this, I'd like to share also my participation, indirect contribution to that through the think tank of the UN called Sustainable Development Solution Network Leadership Council, founded by former Secretary Ban Ki-moon and led by Professor Jeffrey Sachs. He's the intellectual academic father of the SDGs. We have a few meetings in the last 6 months. We are drafting a statement of recommendation to address, try to lobby, to influence the 5 priorities that will be addressed during the summit of the future. 1, how to finance the Green Deal. Number 2, peace and security. Number 3, reform of multilateral institutions, like reform of the UN. 4, youth and future generation, because we look at the future. And 5, not the least, science, technology, innovation, and cooperation. And we were discussing with that, and the last meeting was held at the Pontifical Academy of Social Science in the Vatican. And all of this, we come to the point that no matter what we do in global security, sustainability, technology, emergent and risky technology, we have to come out with the foundation of the use of those institutions and technology, which is to focus on humanity, on the humans. So therefore, the last point I want to address here is the ethics of sustainability and the ethics of digital transformation and sustainability. And I was very honored during that participation at the debate. We were about 30 people from different continents, from different countries, from government, from academia, from the private sector, from the civil society. We were discussing the recommendation that we wish to provide to the Secretary General and all the members of the United Nations. There were a few keynote speakers, and I was privileged and honored to be asked to share my research about Buddhist perspective on AI. It's a great honor for me to be able to talk about Buddhist not as a religion, because we don't have God, Buddhist as a philosophy at the heart of Catholicism. With all of this, I think that all my points here is that digital technology is here to stay, sustainability is a challenge because of how humans use resources on Earth. No other animals overuse the resources of the Earth, of the planet. Only us, human animal, have been the most noxious in destroying a world on which we live and from which we live. So this is a ethical dimension that is important to consider. And with this, I hope that today, from the business point of view, from the World Digital Business Chamber, which mission is to advocate for business, economic have to grow, business has to be stable, profitable, and sustainable. It's important never to forget that we do business for people, and at the end of the day, the well-being of people should be at the center of our consideration. Yeah, thank you for your attention.